Police Sergeant 53-year-old Ian Cheesman has been spared prison after being found guilty of assault against a 13-year-old girl after he was caught on CCTV kicking her and asking her how she liked being kicked. Big man, Cheesman. I wonder how many times you've put in a use of force report against men your own age. Probably never, you pathetic child abuser. The incident happened on the night of April the 5th, 2021, when he decided that a toe punt to a vulnerable young girl would be an appropriate use of force. Cheesman claimed that the kick was a professional technique taught to police, instead of it being an angry kick in retaliation to the 13-year-old girl kicking him moments before. Appearing at Portsmouth Magistrates Court, Sergeant Cheesman denied the single charge of assault, explaining it was a distraction strike. However, District Judge David Robinson wasn't having none of it and could smell the rotting stench of manure wafting from Cheesman every time he opened his mouth. Sergeant Cheesman, who had worked for the police for 29 years before retiring in January this year, was spared any real punishment by being sentenced only to a 1-year community order with a requirement of 50 hours of unpaid work, ordered to pay £625 in costs and a £95 victim surcharge. Cheesman was a custody sergeant on the night of the incident when the 13-year-old girl was due to be released. However, the girl was said to have become anxious about being released, wanting to stay at the police station. Not being funny, but that right there is a red flag. Huge red flag. Nobody wants to stay in a police station unless something really wrong is happening. But of course, we can't expect busy police to notice something as insignificant as that now, can we? The court heard the teenager was being processed for release just after midnight when a custody assistant shouted for help after the girl kicked him and then smacked her appropriate adult who had come to collect her. Cheesman said he rushed to help, leaving his personal protective equipment behind. In other words, not having his weapons on him, leaving him unable to deal with a 13-year-old girl throwing a paddy. He said he tried to calm her down using a stern parent voice, in which he said, "How would you like it if someone kicked you?" Cheesman explained how he took the girl back to her cell, but with the help of Sergeant Daniel Burt. He said, "We were trying to talk to her, but she was responding with verbal abuse, telling us to fuck off and see you next Tuesdays." Now prepare yourself, folks, for some university-level word salad from Sergeant Cheesman, who is really living up to his name here. He said, "I noticed she kicked out her left leg at Sergeant Burt, not with any significant force, but it did make contact. She then kicked out with her right leg at me. She literally kicked me right on my left shin, causing me quite a lot of pain. The level of aggression, we have gone from passive resistance, verbal resistance, and now we have gone to active resistance. She has assaulted me. At this point, I'm thinking, I've got no personal protective equipment with me. I don't have time to grab it, so I had no options apart from using some form of physical restraint or technique. I was concerned that Sergeant Burt was crouched near her. She has already kicked out. She could kick him in the face, potentially. I considered going down and grabbing her legs, but again she could kick me in the face. I made the decision to use what we call a distraction technique, usually a blow, a strike, a kick or a punch, the idea of which is to distract somebody to cause brief muscle dysfunction in the location. The areas we are trained to target are pressure points, so it will send a nerve message to the brain which basically distracts them briefly to allow you as a police officer some very brief time to restrain them or disengage. I had to do something to protect myself and my colleague. She had assaulted me. She had assaulted 2 other people that I knew about. I needed to use that force to give us that brief window to restrain her." And the Oscar goes to Lucy Paddock, prosecuting, said it was not a distraction technique. You were fed up with her behaviour. You try and assert your authority, but it's getting you nowhere. So in frustration and retaliation at being kicked, you kick her. He replied, "It's a recognised Home Office approved technique." District Judge David Robinson said the officers were having to deal with a very difficult situation, but no matter how the female detainee had behaved, this was and remained a 13-year-old girl, sat almost on the floor before 2 standing police officers. I'm sure that in these circumstances what was described as a distraction strike was not reasonable. At least a significant element of that kick was a retaliation. This was a vulnerable female detainee. As a custody sergeant, you were in a position of responsibility and power. Your job was to deal with very difficult people in very difficult situations while ensuring the welfare of everybody, and you breached that duty. You faced a significant degree of provocation. You were kicked and hurt a split second before, and this was an instant reaction. This was a blemish on what was otherwise nearly 30 years of public service. So, a 1-year community order with requirement of 50 hours of unpaid work and some financial penalty. Not exactly, in my opinion, appropriate for the fact he was a sergeant with many years training and he let a 13-year-old girl upset him. Let's just be grateful, I suppose, that he's now retired and no one has to worry about their children in his custody anymore. Thank you to channel supporters, especially these guys. Your support is truly appreciated. Don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts, as I know many of you will. And until next time, stay safe, look after each other, film the police and other officials.